Hi, you can probably tell from the background that this is not a kitchen how-to video, and indeed it is not. It's actually more of a raw food meta chat. And this is a topic that I find really fascinating on all levels, and I wanted to just kind of talk about it with you guys and just bring up some points that might be interesting to you, might be illuminating, might be helpful in your raw food journey. So the topic is raw food and developing the authentic voice. Both of these topics are so interesting to me, and the fact that they're completely related makes it even better. So I wanted to talk about how we get disconnected from our authentic voice in the first place and what that has to do with raw food. How the heck could those two be related at all? So first of all, in our culture, we are often taught not only to not trust our bodies and our awareness of our bodies, but really to be cut off from them, in some cases almost completely. So we're taught to be head up, and most of us are really aware of this. I, for instance, was so much just in my head. I really didn't know about awareness of the body until my 30s, and I started really opening that up and really delving in, and then ended up writing my first book, Guided by Your Own Stars, which is all about how to come back into connection with the body and some of the reasons for disconnecting in the first place. We experience disease in the body, dis-ease, or disharmony in the body because of our disconnection from our awareness of it. We really do, like I was saying, have little awareness of anything but our thoughts often, and our culture really just teaches that, right? In school, we're really focusing on intellectual habits and intellectual learning rather than any kind of an awareness of the body, except for maybe like a PE class, half an hour once a week when you were in elementary school. Was there really anything that you were pointed in the direction of awareness of your body and acting on that? Usually, especially for people my age and older, the answer is like nothing. We had hardly anything. I don't remember really any instruction in that at all. Now, and within the past, I don't know, maybe decade, those things have started to amp up a little bit, and kids are getting like little yoga instruction, even in kindergarten. So there is some of that happening now, which is fantastic. I'm doing a lot of that with Vivi. We are so aware. We meditate in the mornings. We talk about our feelings all of the time. We connect with our bodies. We talk about food and how we feel when we eat certain types of food and when we eat other types of foods. I could do a whole video on that too. That might be a good one also. Activities for kids. But I'm talking really today about adults, and so that is one of the reasons we really disconnect from our bodies, is we are enculturated out of that awareness. We're born with that awareness. We're born pretty much only awareness of what's going on here, not so much conscious, obviously intellectual awareness, but we are expressing awareness. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm wet, I'm cold, right? Those are the things that we are born able to be aware of and express. And then we sort of lose that as time goes on, and we become really disconnected from not only our feelings, but just the physical awareness of the body. We sit at desks for long periods of time. We study. We're on our computers. We lose awareness of how our body's feeling, and we lose those signals of I'm tired, I'm hungry. How many times have you just been working, or studying, and you're like, oh, I haven't eaten all day, or I haven't moved my body. in a long time. I'm feeling stiff, or my back hurts. There's so many injuries and illnesses and diseases that we have nowadays just because we are primarily sedentary. This particular period of time, too, with the corona scare, people are indoors a lot more, unfortunately. We're sitting a lot more. Even our kids are most likely watching a lot more of the screen. We're sort of in that head mode, particularly when we're on a screen and paying attention to something intellectual, that we're really not aware at all of our bodies. Our focus is here. So there's so many ways we are disembodied in our current culture and separated from the vast wisdom of that body. And that is what I love talking about and working on and working with people on, is really getting back in reconnection with that wisdom of the body, because that will take you wherever you need to go. That is our gut instinct. That will tell us what to eat. That'll tell us who we like to be around and who we don't. That will really help shine a light on the path that is right for us in our own particular bodies and our own particular lives. So it's so vastly important. And people who go through their lives without any awareness of the body really, in my opinion, are completely missing out on life, because you are not only not aware of your feelings, so you're trying to intellectually make decisions all the time. You're not aware of your own kind of personal makeup and preferences. And you're not aware of physical sensations. You're not aware of the breeze blowing on your skin, or how a food really tastes when you savor it, or what it feels like to feel really well rested or to feel really tired. Like, all of that is part of the tapestry and the magic and the depth and the texture of life that we're missing out on if we're not in connection with our bodies and how that feels. The truth is that we're never separate from that. We really can't be separate from our bodies, but we certainly can ignore them and habituate being unaware of them. And that's kind of where we are as a culture right now, I would say, in general. There are definitely subsections that are more aware, and some that are less aware. And so we just want to definitely start where we are. And if you're interested in more about that, my first book, Guided by Your Own Stars, like I mentioned, goes into detail and gives you some practices to really become, really re-embody your body, and to get to know who you are and really what you prefer, what you love, and then go in that direction. So those are some reasons why we really disconnect from our bodies. And our bodies are telling us all the time what we need to thrive. They're telling us, what to eat, really what kind of clothing to wear. Like I said, they're talking to us about who is positive in our life, who isn't. And if we could only tune into that, which we can, our lives would be vastly different and vastly better and vastly more full of joy. So what does it have to do with raw food and the authentic voice? Well, when we are disconnected from ourselves and not in connection with all of those messages our bodies are sending us, we can really start anywhere to get back into connection. It's all cumulative. It doesn't matter what entry point you begin with. You can start that reconnection process, and not only is it cumulative, but it is also like a domino effect. You start one thing, and then the other areas will just start coming into alignment, because the more awareness you have, the more awareness you have, right, of the other areas as well. So one of the areas I like to talk about is food, and for people to start that reconnection process with food is often really beneficial because you can get results really quickly. You can get results you've been looking for a long time, whether that be weight loss or specific health impacts that you want to have, changes that you want to make in how you look. So food is one of those portholes that you can enter to start that reconnection process and start reconnecting with your body. And there are so many benefits to that, a lot of which I've already mentioned. But when we're specifically talking about food, and all of this really is the same thing, it's all about true health, true wellness, and being truly who you are. So starting with food is one of those magical things. Just for example, some other areas you could start with are, because we're really talking about bringing nature back into our lives, but we're not talking about bringing nature as something that's from the outside. We're really talking about reconnecting with nature and reintegrating that into our awareness. So you could bring more plants into your life and care for them. You could think about it in terms of how much time are you spending outside in nature and really being aware of the physical sensations. I give a lot of different portholes, really what my book is about, that first book, about ways to reconnect with your knowing and the wisdom of the body. And then my second book, I Heart Raw, is really about doing that through food and bringing health and wellness and wholeness to yourself and to your community and to other species, to the planet in general, through food as a medium to do that. So there are different ways to do it. I like to talk about food personally, so that's what I'm talking about today and with a lot of the stuff that I do. So with food, what we're looking at is going back to what our bodies are designed to eat and what they crave. And when you detox from all this other junk that we are enculturated to eat, it's really kind of a big parallel between we're enculturated to be in our heads, not in connection with our body. We're also enculturated to be really out of touch with what our bodies are asking for as far as food as well. And they will tell you what they want you to eat. Your body will. It will tell you what it doesn't like to eat. It will tell you when to eat, and it will instruct you in a way that will bring about balance and health to you physically as well as emotional balance and intellectual clarity, mental clarity. There's nothing bad about eating great. We just have forgotten what eating great means because of what we are taught. And again, this is an education that is not necessarily a positive education, and one that we want to unlearn, that we want to uneducate from and reconnect with the body and find out what it is that we really need. So that process I talk about in my book, I Heart Raw, and that involves, like I said, detoxing from what we've been told is food, because our culture calls things food that really aren't. They are food-like products and have almost no or no nutritional value. And when you're eating calories without consuming nutrition, your body is going to be continually searching for those nutrients and asking for those nutrients. You're going to feel that as hunger, and you're going to keep eating and keep eating. So you're going to be gaining weight without getting the nutrients you need. And sooner or later, our bodies start to break down. They start to not be able to put out fires, and with all of the other potential stressors in our lives, our bodies can break down even faster. So they really need us to be listening to what they really need to stay healthy. So that is a process of reconnecting with the self and detoxing out what we don't want to be eating, what the body doesn't want, so they can tell us what it does want. And I will give you the cliff notes to that. The cliff notes to that are that it wants whole foods. And specifically, it wants plant foods, whole plant foods. There are many studies showing that eating a plant-based diet is the best way to eat. There are also studies showing that raw food is actually more efficient at kicking out cancer cells and making us more healthy in general, just because when you cook food, it destroys proteins, it destroys nutrients, protein is a nutrient, but it destroys enzymes. It destroys a lot of the things in our foods that our bodies are looking for. So the more raw food you can integrate into your diet, the better. And yes, there are some things that are a little bit easier to digest if we steam them. Steaming doesn't have it's the best way. If you're going to cook something, it's the best way. It doesn't damage the food as badly. So if you're thinking about transitioning to raw foods, steaming is maybe a good way to go if you want to get some of those veggies like broccoli that maybe you don't enjoy so much raw. You can also blend and get the same effects. So the cliff notes are really bringing it back to whole foods, as much raw as possible, and your body will start to wake up. You will probably go through a detox process where you will maybe get some headaches, you will maybe find some rashes happening, but if you're doing a good job of really getting a variety of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and that's really all you need to concentrate on. Look at getting colors, because you're getting all those polyphenols and really great nutrients for your body. Don't do, an overload of one specific thing. Get a variety of all of that, and your body will start to come alive. It will start to heal. You will start to feel 12 all the time. I am 50 years old. I feel 12 all the time. Obviously, there are other factors in your life besides food that can affect you, but food is one of those portals that's really amazing. But once you start looking at why you became disconnected in the first place, a lot of times you can go, oh, okay, I didn't even think about that before, and now, okay, I can just pay attention to this. Some of it's habit. Some of it's, like I've been talking about, unlearning to be connected from our natural state and being in connection with the awareness of our bodies. And some of it is programming on purpose. Whoops. Excuse me, forgot to turn that off. Some of it is, intentional programming to sell you things. So we need to unlearn all of that and be back in awareness of our bodies. And then if we don't automatically then start to pay attention once we habituate those kinds of things, if we find ourselves in maybe specific situations, really eating things we don't want to be eating, that we wouldn't normally eat, we need to then start looking at our schemas, because those are things that can keep us in patterns that are not healthy for us, even when we're aware of them. These may be childhood experiences that kind of formed how we look at the world and form beliefs. Beliefs can also come from what we're told, right? For a long time, many of us believed we needed a vastly more, we need a lot more protein than we actually need. We don't need more protein than we can get in a plant-based diet. We just don't. In fact, too much protein causes issues on its own. So we can have beliefs We can have childhood schemas. We can have just in enculturation. We can have being habituated out of it, and we can just have been educated out of being in connection with our bodies because of our cultural values. So those are some of the reasons that we can be out of them. And when we're noticing we've unlearned and we've started to habituate these new habits, but if we still find ourselves going back to the old ones, as with anything in our lives, we need to start looking at those schemas. That might be doing some therapy, that might be doing some coaching, that might be doing some reading for yourself and really looking into, okay, what's playing out for me right now that's actually causing me to go back to these old habits when I actually know better. So those are some really important underlying aspects of changing any kind of a habit when you've now unlearned, oh, this is actually really unhealthy for me, but why am I still going back to these things? So that can be an important aspect of that. And one of the most important, though, is what I'm calling the authentic voice. So if you're finding, and this would probably play mostly into if you're finding you are going back to old patterns because of a schema you may have developed in childhood, such as I'm not worthy is a common one, right? I'm not good enough. So if you're feeling like you're not worthy or you're not good enough, maybe you're not willing because of that schema to spend the money that you want to spend. Maybe it's a little bit extra to get organic food, for instance, or to shop for yourself on a consistent basis so that you always have food, or to really take the time to do a little bit of meal planning. Any of those things maybe could come from a schema, just for example, that you are, not worthy, right? Just by being alive, you're not worthy of that. So that might be something that you might want to take a deeper look into, because those schemas, the tragedy of living out of old patterns that are no longer efficacious for you in your life, that may come from childhood and usually do, the tragedy of that is that it does not allow you to live in your authentic self. It does not allow you to develop the authentic voice. So, for instance, maybe whenever I go to relatives' houses, I find myself just going, oh, F it, I'm just going to eat what they serve. And then you find yourself beating yourself up about that later. Why did I do that? Why can't I just stand up for myself? Why can't I just make my own choices? And you can see there could be a lot of underlying beliefs, a lot of underlying schemas there that you might need to look into and develop that authentic voice, which just says, hey, you know what? I'm eating a different way. I love you guys. This food looks amazing. I'm kind of doing my own thing. And then being able to just sort of weather whatever comments or maybe criticism. Family of origin is always the thunderdome of all of this, right? Of practicing our authentic voice and acting on that. And doing raw foods is often something that our families of origin, our friends, even just people that we may run into at a restaurant, are not familiar with, maybe don't understand why the heck you would do that, maybe from their own schemas are thinking you think you're better than, or something along those lines, or most commonly feel attacked in their own choices just by the choices that you're making. So, and then, want to put that on you. There's a lot of stuff that can come up around raw food that really just taps into those old patterns, beliefs, and schemas of ours and of people that we may run into. So really developing the ability to just say, you know what, this is right for me. Or if you're hearing criticism, for example, from your family, maybe saying, you know what, this actually doesn't feel really good to me. It doesn't feel like, this is just a choice I'm making and I feel really criticized here. And just taking responsibility for our own feelings and for our own choices and still going ahead with those choices lovingly and while accepting everyone else's choices as well. There's so much to talk about in this topic, and a lot of it I talk about in my my book, I Heart Raw, because a lot of those things do come up really commonly, and I have a lot of suggestions in there, and I can do a lifetime of videos about all of this. But I think this is such a relevant topic. It's such an important topic. And it's one that I would love to hear from you guys if you have any experiences with this, any difficulties. This is something that you could definitely work through with if you're already doing some kind of therapy. I work through this with people who are doing raw food coaching with me. This is not a big ad for me. I just love working with this and talking about it with people. It's kind of a food psychology issue, and there are also people that specialize in food psychology too and would specialize more in things like eating disorders, that kind of thing, which is not my forte, but I am competent definitely at looking at some of those schemas underneath that might underlie, and then at least pointing in directions of how we might be examining those and just doing something different in our lives and ways to do that. So I hope this was interesting to you guys, and have a wonderful day. Feel the breeze on your skin, taste the food that you choose to eat, and really know that you're so worthy in just being alive, and you deserve happiness and joy and good food and a healthy body. Peace.